everyone, and thank you very much for taking part into what is the first day of our language learning masterclass. So first of all, a heartfelt thank you for carving out time in a very, I'm sure, busy schedule to be with us today and throughout this week, which I truly hope will be enlightening for you, regardless of where you are at in your language learning journey. Whether this is something that you've just added to your bucket list because it's January 2024 and you have plenty of New Year resolution, or whether it's something that you've been wanting to do for a long time, something you've been doing for a long time, or perhaps you're even at an advanced level, but you really want to reach mastery of the language. So this masterclass is very much for everyone who is very enthusiastic about speaking a foreign language. My name is Natalie, and I am the director of the Vici Language Academy, and I am very pleased to be sharing this masterclass with my colleague and director of studies, Laura. Hello, Laura. So together and over the next 5 days, we will be sharing very practical tips with you on learning foreign languages and primarily overcoming certain barriers that you may have encountered. Before we start, Laura and I were discussing this, preparing this masterclass last week. It is fair to say that we have never met anyone who hasn't said, I would love to speak a foreign language. You know, I have been in this industry for nearly 25 years, and whether it is in my professional life or my personal life living in different countries, no one has ever said to me, oh no, that wouldn't be of interest to me. People may have said things like, I don't have a language brain, or I'm not going to use it enough, or I like time to take this as a hobby or doing it seriously. But I think that we can all agree that the desire to be bilingual is quite universal.
Definitely.
Now, why are Laura and I here? And why did we want to organize this masterclass? Well, really, our motivation lies in not telling people that learning a foreign language is easy, because it's not a walk in the park. It can be a wonderful and very rewarding journey. And we just want to say to people, hey, if you do this, if you think about it like that, if you implement this 5 minutes a day, I guarantee that that journey will be even more enjoyable. Now, in order to prepare this masterclass, we've actually conducted surveys. So we went and spoke to people on social media, so people we don't know. We spoke to people who had learned languages with us, people who are currently learning languages with us, people who are currently speaking to us in order to embark on a language learning journey this year. So we felt that we had a really good panel of people very enthusiastic about learning languages from many different backgrounds, but also people with various objectives and aspirations. And then what we did is we looked at all the challenges that people said they had or thought they would have. And we prepared a masterclass over 5 days, which is very simple: challenge, solution. So every single day, we will come to you with a language challenge that has been put on the table by any of these people we surveyed. We looked at the 5 or 6 that came up at the top of the challenges, the priorities that people were thinking of. We listed them and we decided to find a solution or several solutions for you. Now, we have structured this masterclass in challenge, solution. Like, this is very straightforward. The other thing as well is we decided to record each session rather than run them live. Why? Because we've done many of those before, and most of them were live. Today, we decided, or this week, we decided to record the sessions and send them over to you. The decision behind this is because we don't just want you to come to a live event and forget about it. We also did not want you to feel that you absolutely had to be there at a certain day, certain time in order to benefit from all the content that we have to share with you. We want you to listen to it in your own time, at your own pace, several times if you have to. Take notes. Please take notes so you can reflect on all the elements that we will put forward. And once you've done that, you'll have a little bit of a mind map as to what you want to use. Not everything is going to be relevant to you, okay? And then once you've done that, at the end of the week, next week, the week after, please come back to us. We would very much love to know what you have chosen to adopt, and maybe in weeks or months' time, what has been the best takeaway for you? What has made a difference? We'd love to hear them. We would love to share them with our community of learners here at the Academy. Now, before we dive into today's content, a little bit of an introduction for Laura and myself. Why are we presenting this masterclass today? And quite frankly, what gives us authority to be here today? So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Natalie, and I am the director of the Vita Group. That means a language academy here in the south of England, in the beautiful county of Berkshire, an office, an agency in France, in the beautiful place of Jura, in the east of France, but also, and in the last few months, an office in the beautiful part of the United States, in Fort Lauderdale, in Florida. Now, interestingly enough, I didn't come from a place where it was easy to become bilingual. So I'm a French native. I do come from Jura. And no one in my family or extended family spoke a foreign language. Jura is an absolutely beautiful and unspoiled part of the world, but it's hardly a place that gives you many opportunities, or at the time anyhow, to become bilingual and have international connections. So there was nothing in my earlier childhood that would point out that I could one day become bilingual. It definitely wasn't on the cards for me. I wasn't a high-flying academic. I only learned languages in school from the age of 11, but my desire to learn was very much fueled by the idea that I love learning and I love communicating with people. So I think that's where my love of languages started. But there was nothing in my background that would say that one day I could become bilingual, perhaps be quite good at learning or speaking foreign languages, and certainly not run an international language training company. How about you, Laura? Please tell us a little bit about your background.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So my name's Laura, and unlike Natalie, I was actually brought up in a bilingual family. So my mum is from England, my dad is from Belgium. I was born in Brussels, which is a very multilingual city, and then I grew up mainly in the United Kingdom. And yeah, so I said I grew up in a bilingual household. Languages was always a really big part of my childhood. My mum is actually a languages teacher as well. So languages was always a really, really big part of my childhood. And so as a result, I decided to study languages and linguistics at university, eventually specializing during my master's in foreign language acquisition and foreign language teaching. So for me, it's always been something that I've loved, and I've always loved to really understand why we speak different languages, how we learn different languages, the differences between different languages. So while Natalie learned in a much more practical way, I really love to study all of the theoretical side of it, really understanding as much as possible. And thanks to the studies that I did and the opportunities I've had, I've actually lived and worked in 5 different European countries as well. So it's definitely something that I've always loved and something that's been a huge part of my life, both personally and professionally as well.
Great, thank you, Laura. So this is very much part of this week's masterclass. My background never dictated that I would one day be able to speak bilingual or have an international career or, train the thousands of people that I have personally trained, as I started as a language coach for French as a foreign language, or, run a team of over 40 coaches and training thousands of people every year. But if I have managed to do that, then my story should tell everyone that being bilingual is absolutely possible. We have had quite a lot of people registering for this masterclass. Thank you very much for interest. I don't believe that if I met every single one of you, I couldn't say, yes, of course, you can become bilingual. So this is my story. Laura's story is very much one of having the opportunity from day one, but then clearly being super interested by it. She could have just grew up bilingually. She decided to make it a career. And the reason why I'm saying that this is very much the story of this masterclass is because no one learns a foreign language in the same way. Language is communication. We are all absorbing information we receive differently. We all enjoy communicating differently. So throughout this week, please feel free to use whatever feels useful to you based on your background, based on your aspiration, based on your objective. And the reason why I believe that the collaboration, the partnership between Laura and I within the Academy works very well, that's because of our different backgrounds. We work very closely together. We create hundreds of different language programs for our students throughout the year, for online training, house training, for residential programs abroad. And every single time when we sit at the table, we go, okay, this is the objective. This is what we're dealing with. What are we going to put in place to make sure that our students can achieve their goals? I come from my very practical background of having learned foreign languages by moving to different countries, by working in different environments, but also with an academic background, because the grounding of my English was at school. And then Laura comes from a very different background with her bilingual upbringing and all the studies and research that she has done on how the brain works to learn a foreign language. So I truly, truly hope that this association, combined with the years of experience, over 30 years between us, will really help you this week with this 5-day masterclass. So let's dive into today's agenda. So day one, the challenge is slow progress and lack of motivation. In the surveys that we conveyed and the students we've interviewed, this came up really quite high in the challenge hierarchy. People are saying, yes, I've tried, but my progress is too slow. And the lack of motivation is closely linked to it because, I have never met anyone who hasn't worked hard at something without at some point getting results. It doesn't happen, does it? If you have a project, personal, professional, and you work and work and work and work at it and put in the right type of effort, at some point you'll see progress. Of course you will. But when you think it's a little too slow, then the motivation starts to go down a little bit. So that is the first thing that we would like to address today. And I will let Laura start with giving you lots of different solutions.
Yeah, so slow progress and lack of motivation are two things that definitely go hand in hand because the slower we think that our progress is, the less motivated we get, the slower our progress is. It really is a bit of a vicious cycle. It's something that we all go through, whether we are learning a language, whether we're learning another skill as well. It's something that takes, dedication, something that we have to really work on. So today I'm going to give you some really practical tips about how to keep your motivation high and how to make sure that you are making progress that goes at a good rate as well. So one of the things that, if you follow Natalie and I, you will have heard us talking about a lot is the idea of having a huge variety and a big diversity of resources. You might have heard us talking about this in terms of blended learning. And essentially what it means is that alongside your language lessons, whether these are one-to-one lessons or in a group or whatever that might be, following an app, you also have a big variety of resources to use alongside that. So for every person that comes to Vici, we work on their blended learning package with them, and we make sure that everyone has a different resources that really work for them. So when I talk about different resources, let me give you some examples of what this might be. It could be, for example, using apps. It could be watching TV or Netflix in your target language. It could be listening to the radio, listening to podcasts. It could be reading books. It could be using internet resources that are specifically designed for language learning, or it could be using resources that we find online that are not necessarily designed for language learning, but that give you more exposure to your target language. So we have never, and we're in 2024, we have never had so much exposure to foreign languages as we have right now. We have never had so many opportunities to find foreign languages online or in real life as we have right now. So sometimes it's hard to know exactly what can count as foreign language learning material. Essentially, any exposure you have to the language, you can turn that into your language learning resources. So the important thing is to not just think about what resources are available, because there are so many, we don't know where to begin, but it's to think about what resources you're interested in. If you have very specific hobbies or you have specific things you're interested in, everyone does, and they're different for all of us, then you should be looking at language learning resources or foreign language resources that are related to these hobbies or to these topics that you enjoy. So to give you an example, if you are someone who really is interested in cars or fashion or whatever it might be, then you can seek out resources in these topics. So for example, you might want to read fashion magazines online in your target language. You might want to watch YouTube videos about that topic in your target language. Essentially, find something that you are interested in that is not just the foreign language, and find resources that are related to that topic. If you find resources that you are genuinely interested in and topics that you genuinely enjoy reading about or researching or watching, then this is going to increase your motivation to learn the language. And because it's not just working on your foreign language, but it's actually doing something that you really enjoy. In order to make sure that you stay motivated in your target language, make sure that you find things that you actually enjoy doing, things you really look forward to. Maybe something you really like to do at the end of the day is to sit down, have a nice cup of tea, wrapped up in a blanket and watch TV. Then that's great. Everyone loves to do that. Maybe you could try and watch something in your target language. It might be an actual TV series that is produced in that language. For example, if you are learning French, you might find a French TV show. Although if you're not quite at that level, then you might look for something that's a bit simpler. For example, a TV show that you already know and love that you can put in the French version. Or if that's too difficult again, think about kids' TV shows, maybe something you really loved to watch when you were a kid. You can probably find it on Netflix or Amazon, wherever you watch your streaming shows. You can probably find them in the target language as well. If you, at the end of the day, at the moment, I love to sit down in front of my fireplace with a little glass of wine at the end of an evening, it's cold, and I love to read. So why not find some books in your target language as well? These are ways that you can bring different language learning resources into your life and actually keep you motivated. If you know that you enjoy sitting down at the end of the day, watching TV or reading a book or whatever it might be, do that, but in your target language to really keep you motivated to do it. Another thing as well is thinking about resources that we can come across quite easily. So, for example, a lot of us use social media on a daily basis. Think about following different actors or actresses, or singers, writers, public figures, media personalities, whatever it might be. Following people in your target language that are these people online means that you can experience the content that they put out on a daily basis. I recently bought a house last year, and we're in the process of renovating the whole house. So anyone who has done that will know that we spend a lot of time looking at inspiration online, at different Instagram accounts, trying to find nice decoration I'm going to put in my house. Well, I've started following all of these different sites and magazines on Instagram in Spanish. For me, that's a really great way for me to actually get some inspiration for my renovations, but also to practice my target language and find study resources that are out there in the world and bring them to me. So that is a really good way of making sure that you stay motivated. This is essentially what it is. It's staying motivated by finding resources that are relevant to you, that are useful to you, and that you enjoy. That's really the main thing, making sure it's something that you enjoy. Another thing you'll have heard us talking about a lot, if you do follow us, is your learning style as well. So alongside finding resources that are interesting to you and that you enjoy, think about your learning styles. So your learning styles is, for example, if you are someone who's very visual and you know that you learn very well by reading, if you're someone who's quite auditory and you learn very well by listening, or if you're someone who's quite kinesthetic and you learn very well by doing things. If you don't exactly know what this means, then you can reach out to us and we can definitely send you some other material we've got about learning styles. But once you've identified your learning style, make sure that you seek out resources that are in line with your learning style as well. This is something that's going to help you to progress faster. And also it's something that's going to keep you motivated, because when you see that you are progressing faster and that you are doing things that you enjoy, you are going to be much more motivated to keep regularly and routinely working on your target language. So make sure you find resources that are relevant to you, that interest you, and also find resources that align with your learning styles as well. So I've spoken a lot about all of the different kind of resources that are available. A few more that I didn't mention, we can think about podcasts as well. So podcasts, of course, there are podcasts that are designed for language learning. For example, we have this series that's like Spanish, Coffee Break Spanish, Coffee Break Italian, all of those ones, BBC Learning English, different podcasts that are created for language learning purposes. But we also have podcasts that are created for not for language learning purposes, but just for the content as well. For example, if you are very interested in, let's say again, in fashion or something, you might want to listen to some podcasts that are in your target language that are about that topic. That's another thing we can do. If not, songs as well, not forgetting to look at the lyrics. You can use either websites that have song lyrics, or you can watch the lyric videos on YouTube, for example. Watching the news, reading the news. If the news is too challenging for you, then why not find a news article in your target language, copy and paste it into something like ChatGPT and ask it to create a simplified version of it for you in your target language. Another way of taking real life resources and making them study resources. Audiobooks as well. If not, another really good tip to keep you motivated and to keep you regularly doing your target language is creating a little diary in your target language. Maybe you sit down at the end of the day for a minute or two every other day and you write a little bit in your language about what you've done in the day. So again, making sure that you do things that are really of interest to you, whatever that might be.
Laura, can I just really rapidly, because what strikes me here is that what we want to encourage you to do is to adopt lots of little activities. We can literally be a few minutes long that don't actually feel like a lesson. They don't feel like learning. We could spend hours today just listing resources that you can use to learn a foreign language. Okay, as Laura quite rightly said, there are hundreds of resources out there. when I started learning a foreign language, we had a textbook and a blackboard and a teacher. Now you have ChatGPT. So there are so many resources out there that, you know, we can list all day long. But the idea here is that to find something and to keep your motivation up, because that is really what we want to talk about today, is finding something that you can put into your daily life, incorporate into your daily life that don't actually feel like learning. Listening to a podcast on your way to work, even if you understand one word out of 10, is not a lesson. You're not writing anything, you're not studying anything, you're not talking about grammar. You're just immersing your brain into Spanish for a little while. So for me, it's about thinking this is not a chore. It's what do I do throughout the day? What is my routine? Where can I incorporate something that could literally take me 5 minutes, if not less, but that will be useful? You know, this is the power of compounding.
Exactly, yeah.
All you do is write a Spanish sentence every day by the fire with your glass of wine in your notebook. It's great, but it's not going to, you know, take you to fluency anytime soon. But if you do that 3 times a week and it takes a minute, and if you listen to a podcast once a week and a Netflix film once a month, you know, it's a little bit, a little bit, and a little bit. And naturally, your progress is going to be a little faster, and therefore you're going to be way more motivated to carry on. And the second thing that I'd like to talk about as well is making sure that you don't just take on all these kind of different resources straight away, like, well, I'm going to tackle all of it. Let's see. We run a masterclass last year where we listed 10 ways to learn French. And we then surveyed people afterwards who had looked at our advice, who had decided to implement it, and who had decided to take up French. And the best results came from people who used 3 or 4 of our tips and techniques only. Everyone who had tried to do more than that felt really overwhelmed in the process. In the same way that it takes time to learn a foreign language, it takes time to get results from each of these different activities that you'll adopt, but also for you to understand which is the best one for me. It could be that listening to a podcast, you do it for a month and then you find it actually annoying. It's just not really for you. It could be that you absolutely love doing the writing by the fireplace. So you don't just do a sentence, you do a paragraph. But what I'd like to say is that clearly the importance of having a variety of resources that keep your mind excited about learning, that immerse your brain in very different contexts and situations all the time, that is 200% undoubtedly what will keep your motivation up. But to me, think about a couple of things. Don't overwhelm yourself. Use 2 or 3 techniques, tips, activities only, and then try to find things that can be put into your schedule, and it will feel like a really smooth process, not something that feel like a chore, something that you really have to do.
Exactly, definitely. And also to kind of link to what you said about being careful not to have too much as well, kind of brings me to the next point I wanted to make about also how we feel sometimes we have very slow progress. Sometimes we have so much available to us that we want to do everything. We want to listen to this podcast, and I'm going to read that book, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And sometimes we just need to be careful as well that we don't rush through everything, because there is so much available to us, and that we do actually take the time to repeat and to revise as well. So when we are learning a language and we are introduced to new language forms, or we're introduced to new things, some of the first way that we learn it is that it becomes in our short-term memory. That means that we can remember it right now. It means that by the time we get to the end of the exercise, we're still going to remember it. But in order to actually be able to, firstly, first step is to recognize that language form in a new context when we see it, and later on to be able to actually produce the language form as well. We need to move it from our short-term memory into our long-term memory. So the way that we do this is through repetitive exposure to the language. So that means that while we spend time listening to podcasts, watching TV, reading, whatever little things you want to do, that's really good to learn the words and to learn the forms to begin with. But then we need to make sure that we follow that up with more repetitive exposure to the same kind of language as well. That is how we make sure that things go from our short-term memory into our long-term memory. And that is how we make sure we are actually making progress as well. Rather than just doing new things every single time and getting loads and loads of things into our short-term memory that we then forget in a few weeks, we need to make sure that we are revising. Maybe you listen to a podcast and then in a couple of weeks, you think, I'm going to listen to it again and see how much more I understand. Or maybe you listen to a podcast on a specific topic and then you think that was really interesting. I'm going to do some more research. I'm going to read an article about that topic in my target language as well. That is one of the ways that you can make sure you are getting enough exposure to the language to really put these forms from your short term into your long-term memory. And that is how you're going to see real progress as well. It means that rather than just remembering things in the short term, it means that the next time you are in a situation where you use your target language, whether it's just listening, reading, or whether it's actually producing the language as well, you're going to have seen that form enough to really manage to get it entrenched into your brain and able to use the language forms as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. How about we close today's session by each sharing a couple of things that we have done to learn languages and that have been useful and that have kept us motivated. Shall I start?
Yeah, go ahead first.
Whilst you were talking, I was just thinking, so something that I really enjoyed doing when I was learning English was reading texts out loud. And I think that ticks all the boxes in terms of what you said. That was definitely for me to read text that I could mainly understand. I couldn't understand all of it, but I could understand, I'd say, 65% of it. So a lot of all these new words and grammatical forms were in my short-term memory, and the way that I could push it back to stay there forever was to do a lot of reading. But I love reading, but I'm not an amazing reader. I will read, a few pages of a book and then I'll get bored really quickly. So, but I love talking. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm a real communicator. I love communicating with people. So what did I do? I decided to communicate with myself. And so I would choose, I bought a bilingual magazine. That was very good for me. And then I would choose texts that I had an interest in. And then I would stand up and I would read them out loud, but in the same way that if I was doing a lecture. That may sound a little odd, but it was absolutely brilliant for me because it helped me to articulate well. It helped me to see the words that I was stumbling across. It helped me to see grammatical forms, syntax that I had learned in class that I wasn't able to reproduce myself yet. By doing it like that and by reading them, even though it didn't come from me, I was reading someone else's text, it was really giving me the confidence to reproducing them. I could see a lot of words that I had seen in class, maybe, quite a while before that. So reading texts out loud was a really good one for me. This was 30 years ago. Today, something that by, starting learning Spanish not very long ago that I've been doing, which has been really helpful for me, was using an app that uses hypnosis. So it's an app that we use with a lot of our students, and it uses hypnosis. Why has it been helpful for me? Not particularly because it uses hypnosis, but because of the situation that you're in when you're trying to learn. So what I'm trying to say here, here's a bit of context, is that I will grab my iPad and I will only ever do exercises on this app when I go to bed. So I go to bed and with my herbal tea, a little bit like you, Laura. See, that's when we see how British you are when you start to talk about cups of tea. And I will just do, I'll do the hypnosis technique for 3 minutes, then I'll do my little exercise. And for me, this is a time where I just want to settle, and it's just before I go to bed and I want to be relaxed. And so why is it working for me? It's working for me because it's definitely not like a chore. Interestingly enough, I know a lot of people like apps on their phone. You see, for me, that doesn't work. They can be as brilliant as they can be, and some are, but I use my phone a lot for work. So for me, using my phone as well for a leisurely activity doesn't work. My brain is not engaged, yet my brain is engaged with this app that is on my iPad that I don't particularly use for work, and that helps me to relax in the evening. And so this one's for Spanish, the first one was for English, but both of them are very little thing that I'm finding enjoyable to do, so they don't feel like a chore. They help me to stay motivated and therefore, keep this enthusiasm for being able to improve in that language. So I hope that's helpful to people who are watching. How about you?
Definitely. Yeah, and that also shows you're someone who likes to learn by doing as well, when you like to
Absolutely.
stand up and read. Yeah. For me, something that I love is I love to read. I read all the time. I read every day. I just had a week off for Christmas and I read like 6 books in the week. I'm someone who reads all the time. So what I love to do is to get my some of my favorite books, often just fiction books that I really love, that I've read time and time again, and to buy them in Spanish, for example, to buy them in a target language. And then that way, it's something that I love to do, and it's something that I would do anyway. I would just sit down, in front of the fire in the evening and read. I would do that anyway. And now it's something I get to do in my target language or in Spanish, and whatever language it is that I'm trying to learn. So finding something that you really love to do and doing that in the language is perfect. And another thing so that's kind of more for sort of casual learning and because I enjoy it as well. But another thing that I did particularly at university, and that actually I still do now, even though I don't have any exams to take, is I am someone who's very visual. So I like to take a blank piece of paper and I like to write kind of like a poster that has all of the things I've learned on it. In particular, for Spanish, learning the conjugations is something that's not the easiest. So I like to have my piece of paper and I have all of my different colors, and each color is a different tense. And everything for me is very visual, and I have like notes written around it, and I have little drawings, and I have colors that mean certain things. And for me, that's a way that I really feel like I learn. So I like to have everything down on my paper and I write it all out. And then for me already, it's kind of like a test. What do I know already? What do I need to learn as well? What do I not know? What do I need to look up? And, that's not going to be something that interests everybody. But if you're someone like me who really likes to understand the language as well, and who really, enjoys maybe some of the more academic parts as well, then that's a really good way of kind of playing with the language and putting it all down and making these pretty posters that I can stick up on my wall and learn afterwards as well. So there you go. That's two things that are quite different from yours, but hopefully that means we speak to everyone in the audience.
Absolutely. And when we first started this masterclass, I said how different our respective backgrounds were when it comes to learning a foreign language. And this is a topic of conversation here in the office. And I often say that, when we first met, the only thing we had in common was that I have lived in your country for a very long period of time and you've lived in mine. But in terms of our experience of working with the language and learning the language, it was very different. So as you quite rightly said, hopefully this is just really now nothing but hugely beneficial for everyone who is taking part in this masterclass. So I think that today can now conclude on the lack of motivation and slow progress when you learn a foreign language. So I truly hope that everything that Laura has said, the short-term memory and long-term memory is, and all the different activities that you can do and how you can plan them in your daily schedule are being very helpful. As always, send us your feedback. We would love to know. And we will see you tomorrow when we will address another challenge, which is the absence of being in an immersive environment. Many students come to us every year and say, I'd love to learn, but I probably won't be able to because I'm not immersed in the language enough. I'm reaching a plateau and I'm really wondering if I can go any further, sorry, because I'm not in an immersive environment. I think we have quite a few good tips to help you see things slightly differently. So, Laura, thank you very much. And everyone, thank you so much for being present today, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.